So I'm going to explain some basic concepts and see if that helps. I have here an elevation coming straight from the model. This one doesn't have anything enabled. It's just the drawings. I mean the lines, just projecting from the view. Now I have to explain first something important, and that is that ArchiCAD handles representation in two different ways. One is the vectorial representation of a drawing, which is what you're looking at here, and the other one is going to be the rendered representation. So ArchiCAD, whenever you select a material, like in this case, the brick, right? We have a texture, and this texture is going to be used for rendering. And we also have a vectorial hatching. This one is going to be used for vectorial representation. ArchiCAD handles it this way because ArchiCAD is not as opposed to SketchUp, which was born, or actually it's more like on the 3D modeling, viewing kind of thing, is not exactly made for construction drawings, right? So SketchUp is more based on the graphical side. It's more developed on that end. ArchiCAD has, separated those things because it knows that, these need to be, vectorial representations need to be accurate. And you can actually go as far as defining scales for the brick, actual measurements of those vectorial fill patterns, and make them match the drawings and dimension them, and so that's why ArchiCAD separates them both. So whenever you have a material, you define any material, you're going to find that you always have those two different things, the vectorial and the texture. Again, vectorial is going to be useful on the elevations, and texture is going to be used for rendering. At the end of this, I'm going to show you how to create an overlay and kind of use it, which is the render that JT sent you. But for now, I just wanted to kind of explain that concept. We did change your material, we did change your brick, not because it was needed to show you something that looked nicer, but because the texture that you had was out of scale, and we didn't know the reason for that. So we fixed that, and then also we noticed that you had two different kind of bricks on different parts. So I didn't know where the design was going, so we just kind of selected a different one and to kind of make it look even. But it was because of that reason we needed to the design, to kind of be able to show you something that didn't look off, and the model had a couple of things off. So this is the elevation straight. If you go to the elevation settings, draw, you can enable different things for the uncut elements. The first one, you can enable, uniform pen color, right? And in this case, it turns on the shade, but you can enable as well own surface colors. So where is that own surface color coming from? That is coming from, oops, sorry about that. That is coming from the material on the basic engine, right? The surface color. You change the color here, right? It's gonna change on the drawing as well. That is just surface color. That is not related to the bitmap that is used for rendering. So this is just for 2D representation. So again, that is just surface color. You can enable also on the elevation settings, surface color, shaded, right? Here it is. And what shaded means is that it's taking the sun in consideration, not only for shadows, but also, like you can see here, depends where the faces are going. Like for example, this case may be a good example. the sun is hitting on the surface. The sun is hitting these two faces. This one is brighter because it's more directly facing the sun. This one is less bright because it has a different angle towards the sun. So that's what that means. This is probably the same example here. This face is facing the sun. This face is not facing as you know, totally like perpendicular to it. So the shading reflects on that. That's what that means. Shaded is not the actual shade. That's just for the surface. Now let's enable something else here. We're gonna turn on vectorial 3D hatching. That vectorial 3D hatching, what it does is it grabs the vectorial information from the material. You know, I'm just gonna change something here. I'm gonna say this one is gonna be whatever, insulation rigid, right? So I change the material and that changes the representation, right? If you wanted to make those little squares at a certain scale, you can always go to the fill patterns and, you know, define them, make new fills and whatever, right? Set the scales and that kind of stuff. So that's what that is useful for. You can always, let me just see if I'm missing something here. Well, transparency is going to enable transparency on the windows. And this is obviously sun and shadows. These are the actual shadows that we were talking about here. We turn them off, we turn off shadows, right? Let me see what else we have here, just to make sure that I cover everything. I always like enabling shadows. I think that gives the drawing some depth. So that is for vectorial representation. Now, you can always, and if you're more interested in that, we can go over that, but you can override this information. I'm just gonna go here to white model and see, you know, that those settings can be overridden, you know, with the graphic overrides. And these graphic overrides can do pretty much everything. They can replace anything in your drawing for something else. Fill patterns, lines, this is very powerful. It's a very powerful tool. You don't need to be changing materials in order to change. Like if you want to have different options of this house, you can create a graphical override and say whatever is a wall that has this brick, then I need to override the fill pattern for something else. And then once you do that, you save that setting and you can just click here and it's going to change from brick to the other one. I can show you that. I don't want to get too deep into that as to not to confuse you. So this is the vectorial information. Now let's go to the layout real quick here. So this is the elevation. On the elevation, you were asking on that email that you sent JT about changing the representation, like something for black and white. I don't know exactly what the reason was for that. This is the elevation straight from the model. You can always go to the settings and change from pen set or grayscale, or even you can, you know, use pen sets, and this, you know, can go as far as you want to in complexity. But for now, all I did was to change, you know, grayscale or defined by pen set here. And so again, this is color, this is grayscale. So I don't know exactly what you meant by black and white. That's just the setting that can be enabled on the elevation. So okay, that's for vectorial. Now I wanted to show you something about rendering and having that more SketchUp-like. This vectorial does not show any bitmap on them. The plans that you sent JT, they do have some texture, but I thought of a trick that may help, and I want to show you that. So I'm just going to go here to the south elevation, and I'm going to go to a 3D view. Let's say generic perspective. Actually, I'm just going to go to sonometric. Okay, so I have here, this is the 3D view actually. 3D view of the model. You just right click on it, go 3D projection settings, you go to side view here, and then you just set your angle right, you know, so you're looking from the south to 70, and that's the view that I get, right? So once I have this view, I can create a render view. I'm just going to go to settings, kind of see, you know, I want to kind of create just a render of this part, not too far from it. So let me see, I'm just going to say, I don't know, 2000 is good here, maybe 1000 here. 1000, oops, this thing is, so it's 2000 by 1000. That kind of tightens it up a little bit, maybe 800. That's better. Okay, so this is what I'm rendering. I'm rendering an elevation. I'm gonna go to a setting here. Oh, I'm sorry, detail settings. I'm going to go to detail settings, and I'm going to go to options, and I'm going to go general options, and I'm going to turn on alpha channel, alpha masking. So I'm going to turn it on, I'm going to enable it, and what it does is that whenever I render, it's going to render the geometry, but whatever is outside of the geometry is not going to have any fill pattern, and that's going to be useful in the elevation. So I'm just going to create that render. Usually elevations shouldn't take long, and I think this is based on the daylight fast rendering. If you want to create a more accurate, more precise rendering, you can always do that. Again, your computers may be better than mine, faster. Something I wanted to mention here, these materials are materials from the ArchiCAD library, and specifically brick is very complicated. It's not, I mean, not complicated to render, but it's a very complicated choice because there are so many colors of brick that it's very hard sometimes to find the exact one that you want. But you can always change this and even download from the manufacturer or whatever and create your own surface. All you have to do is go to the surface settings. You know, you can, like this one, brick bone copy. You can create a new one. Say, make a copy of the brick bone, right? Duplicate it, so okay, and now you can rename it, blah blah blah, and you can go and look for the texture. Either these are already included in ArchiCAD. I think the one you had was one of these red ones, and it was way too bright, which is why we changed it. But you can grab from the textures on ArchiCAD, or you can always add a texture and, you know, just go to your computer and look for the file, and you know, make it look as, you know, the manufacturer specification. So, okay, the render is done. I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save this render. So I'm just gonna go to File, Save As. I'm gonna make sure that I select PNG file, and I always make sure that I have high accuracy color with alpha channel, right? So I'm gonna save this one on my desktop. It was already saved, but I'm gonna replace it. Cool. And now we're gonna go to my elevation, south elevation. Right, on south elevation, I'm gonna go to the elevation settings. Actually, I'm just gonna do it on this one. Elevation settings, and I'm gonna turn off fill uncut surfaces with, I don't want it to fill with anything. That's gonna turn off my textures on my drawing, right? And then I'm gonna go to my desktop and the whole thing, just gonna put it outside, better. And I'm gonna bring it from here. You could have rendered high resolution. Again, this is just a matter of how much time you want to spend and how precise you want the drawing to be. Okay. And now we're gonna have to scale, which is Control K, right? That you bring from this point to this point, and that's here. There you go. You do that once, and then after that, whenever if you change the project or something, you can just go back to your 3D view and render again, and it should update from the file. You might want to turn off these. I don't know if you know how to. You can just go, I'm going to select all my windows here, go to the settings. I think that's going to be here on opening lines, override, no opening line. Okay, so opening lines are off, and the view has the materials. Again, all these settings are coming from the render. If you want a different brick, you just change the material. If you want it brighter, you can change the sun intensity. All that is, part of the render. Part of the render settings. I want to show you something else. Don't say this. Just go to the south elevation. Okay. So this is a render, and it has alpha channel. So you may want to turn that off. So when you turn transparency on, that enables to have some other textures. I'm going to show you here how to add some trees. So I'm just going to go to the library. These are the ArchiCAD libraries. You go here on the library, you can select if you wanted the top view or side view. So I'm going to bring on the side view one of those trees over here. I'm going to put it here. And then it's just a matter of changing the display order and bring it back, there you go. And these are ArchiCAD objects. You can change the scale, you can copy them. So I thought it was a good alternative. Again, all this is inside of ArchiCAD, and this is completely accurate. If you want to create dimensions here, right, you can always do that. Oops, I went sideways, but you can do that because this is the vectorial part of this is completely accurate. What we are using is just a render overlay, you could say, in order to give that SketchUp look that you want. So I don't know, I think it helps. Let's just go back to your elevations. There you go, that's your view. And again, if you want this to be black and white, you can always go here and change this to grayscale. And you have a black and white view of your. I think black and white may be good, especially with brick, because again, brick colors are crazy. So, and you can, the benefit of doing this here is that you can always go back and, turn colors again. You don't need to change the materials or anything like that. I hope this helps. I hope this is closer. I was kind of trying to figure out how we could get that SketchUp look that you were looking for, and I think this is very close. I think this is, I don't know. I think it looks nice. I hope it helps. Thank you.